I'm going to go over the state of the program for Baylor women's basketball after the 2025-2026 season concluded. I apologize for looking at it because I cannot memorize all this stuff. Baylor did finish the season 25-9 overall, 13-5 in the Big 12. I wanted to wait a few days before discussing this anyway. First of all, I wanted the fan base to calm down a bit, if possible, after that loss against Duke. And I did say in my preview, Duke have been playing a lot better basketball ever since that 3-6 start. They only lost twice. Maybe they'll get revenge against LSU. Who knows? Duke was the higher seed. They were at home. They were favored by double digits. Playing Duke at Duke is tough. And it's not even mentioning the fact that it is so hard to beat the same team twice when it was game number 1 of the season. And clearly Duke wanted revenge. I'm just making that point right there. The second reason I wanted to think about what I wanted to say to the fan base in particular. And the third one, I wanted to see what else happened in terms of the first weekend of the NCAA Tournament Division I women's basketball. This is besides the playing games prior to the first weekend for the first and second rounds of the NCAA Tournament. So you guys get the point there. I don't know how many fans really think this, but I honestly think the expectation of Final Four is unrealistic at this time. It's because of the state of college athletics with NIL and transfer portal. I'll go over there's only less than a handful of teams that I consider, schools that I consider Final Four good right now. Obviously, there's one from the Big East, and we all know who that is, which school that is. It's UConn until Gino Auriemma retires. I expect UConn to take a step back once Gino retires, to be honest. It's so hard to live up to his expectations, no matter who's the next head coach. And I'm going to just go to, there's only 2 more schools that are definite, and that's from the SEC. And obviously Texas is one of them until Vic Schaefer retires. And then South Carolina, which I know there's Dawn Staley there. I just don't think, unless she takes a bigger job, I don't think she's going to leave South Carolina. I'm just saying, that's 3 schools. And I'm going to go maybe a few other SEC schools that could be on that list. Maybe LSU is going to be on that list until Kim Mulkey retires potentially. But I know they lose some key pieces from this year and everything like that. You get the point. Oklahoma is certainly another option with Aaliyah Chavez, and their head coach is younger. And I honestly don't think she's going to take a bigger job than Oklahoma. Vanderbilt's definitely another option with Michaela Blakes and Shea Ralph as head coach. But the question is, if the UConn job does come open, will she go back to her alma mater? Because remember, she played at UConn. She was an assistant at UConn for a long time before taking the Vanderbilt job, and she obviously elevated that program. And I know they're going to lose a few seniors for sure that really helped build that program up. Kentucky, I wouldn't consider that possibly. Yes, Kenny Brooks is in the Sweet 16 this year, but in year 2. But you got to look at what he did, at Virginia Tech. Yeah, he got to a Final Four, but guess what happened the next year? Round of 32 exit with a loss to Baylor. So you get the point. Now, shifting over to the Big Ten. I don't know about UCLA being on this list, because they're going to lose some seniors, including a once-in-a-generational talent in Lauren Betts. I don't know about putting them on the list going forward after this year. If there was a year for them to win a national title or go back to the Final Four or get to the title game at least, this is the year for them. I'm just being really serious. I don't know. Maybe USC's on that list for next year once Juju Watkins gets healthy, but it's going to be taking a little adjustment period after tearing an ACL and getting used to playing again. So maybe, and with their recruiting class, maybe it's 2 years from now. I don't know. I don't know about Iowa, and Iowa's taken a step back since Caitlin Clark and their longtime head coach left in the same offseason. Back-to-back round of 32 exits. Including this year, they lost to a play-in squad in Virginia who had to beat Arizona State in the first 4 game by 2, and then they had to beat a 7 seed Georgia in overtime. And then obviously they needed double overtime to even beat Iowa at Iowa. I don't know about Iowa being on that list, and I know they're kind of they do have some younger players. Maybe they'll get up to that point. I don't know. Now, Michigan could be in the discussion because they have younger players. They could be. The better players are younger. Ohio State, maybe, but these last 3 years have been regression. I mean, round of 32 exits. I'm just telling the truth. I mean, they were like first in the Big Ten for the 2023-2024 season. And yet they lost as a 2 seed that year to Duke. Remember that. There's obviously the 2024-2025 season. They were a 4 seed, but they lost to a 5. And this year they were a 3, and they lost to Notre Dame, which Notre Dame had Hannah Hidalgo. That's probably one of the reasons why that Notre Dame won that game, to be honest. So you get the point there. I don't think there's any more Big Ten schools I really need to consider. I don't know about, I would not put Minnesota up there for Final Four good right now. I wouldn't. Maryland, I wouldn't think so either. And their head coach has been there a while. And once she retires, they could take a step back. I don't know. And I know there's Michigan State, but I would not put them on that list either. In terms of ACC, though, just the ACC. Maybe Duke is a Final Four team. They only in the down the line because they only have like 2 seniors that really play a lot. Maybe they are Final Four good. I don't know about this year because they have to face a 1 seed later on. But maybe next year, maybe, or the year after. I don't know. I don't know about Louisville being on that level either. Honestly. I know North Carolina didn't make an Elite 8 a few years ago, but I don't think they are Final Four good. I know NC State went into a Final Four a few years ago, but I don't think they're Final Four good either. And I know Notre Dame has not made it to an Elite 8 since Muffet McGraw retired, let alone a Final Four, of course, since Muffet McGraw retired. I don't think they are Final Four good. I know they got a good recruiting class coming in, but look how many seniors are going to lose. And it's just telling the truth. And that is if they even can retain Hannah Hidalgo. After all, they lost Olivia Miles to the transfer portal. And you know where she ended up. At TCU. So you guys get the point about that. In the ACC, there's not a lot of teams in the ACC. Now, do I really think TCU is Final Four good? No. They're going to lose. And the crazy thing is, they have an easier draw now to go to back-to-back Elite Eights now because of the Iowa loss to Virginia. But guess what? They will have a reality check once they play against a 1 seed. I'm sorry. They're going to have one of those reality checks. They're going to play probably South Carolina. I know South Carolina lost to Oklahoma in the regular season. I know in overtime. But I don't expect South Carolina to get beat by the same team twice. I just don't. I don't see it happening. So they got to be thanking the gods right now that they don't have to face 2-seed Iowa. Because if they would have faced 2-seed Iowa, maybe they still would have beat them, but it would have been a tougher game than Virginia. And who knows? If Virginia could go on the road to beat Iowa, they could certainly beat TCU on a neutral floor. Potentially. It's a wait and see, though. Do I really think West Virginia is Final Four good? I wouldn't. I'm sorry. I don't think they are. It's just, I know they have a good head coach. I know they do. But they are going to lose 3 out of the 4 double-digit scores due to graduation. And I know it's not including 2 other seniors. And I look, too, about TCU. They're losing a lot of seniors, as is. And I don't think it's realistic for them to expect like a Haley Van Lith or Olivia Miles top a splash at point guard for 3 consecutive seasons. I don't think that's realistic. And I know what Mark Campbell did prior to TCU and getting one-year players at point guard. But how realistic is it to get like basically a first-round pick, let alone somebody as good as Olivia Miles for 3 straight years? I mean, for back-to-back seasons, let alone 3 years in a row of getting like first-round picks. I don't think it's realistic. I just don't. Do I really think Oklahoma State's Final Four good? No chance. I know they have a kind of a good head coach. It's just, even that last year when they punked Baylor pretty bad in Waco, they were like an early exit in the NCAA tournament. That's the catch about them. Do I really think Texas Tech is Final Four good? No chance. I'm sorry. They're losing 9 seniors this year. And I know they have a 7-foot player, but she redshirted in the second semester, in her first semester at Texas Tech, which was actually this spring. They do have 5 other players coming in, I know. But still, you get the point. And obviously, Colorado's a no chance as well on being Final Four good. And maybe they're going to be better in a year from now than that round of 64 exit, but they're going to lose J. Masagayo and a Duhat. Duhat. So you get the point about them. So yeah, I don't need to go further down the list in terms of Big 12. You already know my thoughts on Baylor. I think a more realistic expectation is like a Sweet 16, Elite 8, honestly. I think that's the case. Until something happens with the NIL and making a more even playing field again, I don't think Final Four is a realistic expectation. I did kind of went over like what's going to happen like for those schools in the Big 12. And here's another thing you got to consider. It is so hard to replace a legend or a longtime head coach at a school. I kind of mentioned Iowa earlier, but the head coach at Iowa was there a long time, but look at Jane Jensen in these last 2 years, rounded 32 exits. I kind of mentioned that already. And look, obviously like Texas A&M has taken a step back since Gary Blair retired at A&M. You can't deny that. And I know Notre Dame has not made it to Elite Eight since Muffin McGraw retired. Maybe this is a year because they got in Hidalgo. It's going to be against Vanderbilt, but on a neutral floor. But you get the point there. This obviously Stanford, after Tara Vanderveer, guess what they have done these last 2 years? They did not make the NCAA tournament. Yes, you heard me correctly. And this is despite having multiple All-Americans out of high school. So I'm just making the point right there. And honestly, there's the prime example of Tennessee. After Pat Summitt left, they have chased off two head coaches. Two of them. The initial replacement for Tennessee, and then one after that. And even right now, Kim Caldwell, they might want to chase off. Because in year 2, guess what she did this past year? 16-14. That's one of the worst records they had in Tennessee women's basketball in a long time. They finished in the round of 64. Yeah, you heard me correctly about that. And they spent so much money. It's not just all about the money either. Like, yeah, you could have the money, but you gotta spend it wisely and have a good roster construction. It just hasn't worked out right there, and she's gonna be on the hot seat if they decide to retain her for next year, and even if possibly like a little light under the fire because she went to the Sweet 16 in her first season at Tennessee. Now next year, I think if she's still there, she's going to be a little bit under some heat, to say the least. I'm sorry, but it's telling the truth. And even if she does get 2 more years, I think that 4th year, she's definitely on the hot seat if they don't get to Elite 8 again for that program. So you guys get the point. And about this. And look, it's not that winning Big 12 is so unrealistic. I don't think it is. But guess what? This league has more parity now and more competitive than it has been in a while. And this is a different era of college athletics, in particular college women's basketball, than Kim Mulkey was here. I'm just saying. And look, another thing is Nikki Collins finished no worse than tied for 4th in the Big 12, period. I mean, you got to remember, too, Kim Mulkey in her first 4 years at Baylor, she did not finish first place in the Big 12. She did not. Even from 2006 to 2010, they did not finish first place in the Big 12. You got to remember that. And look, Nikki Collins won year 1, like the Big 12 in year 1 in regular season. But you got to remember, too, that the roster was depleted. They didn't have depth. And I know they fell in the round of 32, but you get the point. And obviously in year 2, they got Asia Blackwell. She was good at Missouri. It's just she got hurt and was never the same. Obviously, she tried to come back, but it didn't work. Honestly, it didn't. She was not the same. And then obviously the next year, she was not the same either. And it's not even mentioning the Dre Edwards situation that happened in her first true year at Baylor. The Kentucky coach did not want to give her a waiver. The former Kentucky coach. So you got to remember that too. And guess what they did the following year when they had Dre Edwards? They made it to Sweet 16. And look, these last 3 years, they had 25 wins or more, including a Sweet 16 run. I would take that. I would. In terms of the wins. And I know there still needs to be more to be done in terms of NCAAs. I know. But at least it's not like Baylor's so far off in the Big 12 here. Because remember, for this year, if they would have beat TCU just one time, 3-way tie for first. And obviously, if they would have beat West Virginia at West Virginia and then beat Texas Tech that one time, they didn't have Talia Scott for the majority of the game, they would have won the Big 12. Either like tied with TCU, and obviously TCU got the nod, tied for first place, or beat TCU and then beat Texas Tech that one time. They would have won. They would have got the Big 12, like the head-to-head. I mean, that would be like tied for first for the Big 12, and obviously being TCU once, Texas Tech once, that first time, and obviously being West Virginia. They would have won the Big 12 outright. So it's not like they're so far away. I mean, they were 2 games back from first place. So enough of like the national scale and talking about like who's Final Four good and all that. And I kind of briefly gone over like Big 12 schools. But I'm not going to go over every single one because it's so hard anyway. And look, it could be worse because look, Iowa State was preseason top 15 in the country these last 2 years, as well as preseason picks second in the Big 12. Guess what they did? They're going to finish unranked. They finished around the 64 back-to-back years. And it's not even mentioning they finished 7th in the Big 12. Both times. So we're have to honestly wait and see what Iowa State, what they're going to do. Like once Bill Finley retires at Iowa State. He's been there for 30 years. It's just they have regressed since that Sweet 16 they had. So you guys get the point. Even year one with Audie Crooks, they went to the round of 32. They pushed Stanford and lost in overtime. But these last 2 years have been clearly regression, to say the least. Okay, what players are Baylor women's basketball is definitely going to lose. No matter what, Jan Van Guybeek's done. She's out of eligibility. Now the 5-5 thing, I don't think it's going to happen. So it's really Darian Little, Paige Buggs. We're going to miss her down here. And obviously Bella Fournier, and I wish she would have shot better from 3. And I know she wishes that too. I know she does. But she clearly regressed in terms of the 3-point shooting. Not just from last year to this year, but these last 2 years. And honestly, there's Kirsten Johnson as well. She was good at times and okay at times. So you guys get the point. And this is pending like transfer portal, I know. And I would try to find a way to keep Talia Scott here at Baylor as much as possible. And you got to think about another thing here. Does she really want to go to her 4th school in 4 years? It's not sustainable in terms of graduation anyway. And obviously she wanted to leave Arkansas, then Auburn. And we all know that the Auburn head coach is an associate head coach at Baylor now. So, and Johnny Harris. We know that. So there's that relationship right there. It's just got obviously get NIL money. And I do think the bigger issue for Baylor women's basketball right now anyway is NIL money than a head coach deal. I really do. Because if you want to spend to be a Final Four team, in order to be a Final Four team again, you got to spend the money to do it. You got to. So, and I do also think there are bigger issues to Baylor athletics right now than Baylor women's basketball. Just a few examples. Football, obviously. Equestrian. And baseball. If baseball were to go to the NCAA tournament this year, I wouldn't consider that as an issue anymore, like a potential issue. And another thing you got to keep in mind here, Doug McNamee, this is only like within his 4th month of the job at Baylor. He probably wants maybe a little bit more time to think about, hey, if I were to move on from a coach, what would I do? Yeah, that's another thing, and I'm sure I would think Doug and Nikki Collin are going to discuss and what needs to change. And I know it's frustrating to lose TCU 5 straight times, and I know something has to be fixed right there. So okay, and I'm going to also mention obviously Markayla Johnson. Who know if she does come back at Baylor? When is she going to really return? I would say no earlier than like November, but even November is pushing it, and obviously December might be more realistic. But even then, I don't know if it's worth rushing her back from a torn ACL, because the last thing you're going to do is rush back from a torn ACL and tear it again. I mean, I'm just telling the truth. And I know there's Lorena AU, like she has like some type of like injury that maybe required surgery, like around her wrist and elbow, like wrist or elbow. I don't know what it is, and I don't know what the severity of it is. I just noticed the cast, like at Baylor women's basketball games at home recently. So yeah, what are some needs for Baylor women's basketball? And obviously, like a playmaking guards, a swing player at three, players at three, and a couple of bigs. That's what Nikki Khan said in the press conference after the Duke loss. By the way, she did say that, and honestly, she did say we got to be better against like with turnovers in general. And she did mention we got to do a better job against presses, because remember with Jada Walker, you couldn't trap her because of her speed, and honestly, Sarah Andrews could dribble through double teams. We got to do a better job on that. It's not the shooters; it's just we got to take care of the ball better. And she does like she would like more balance on offense, and not put so much pressure on Talia Scott. Anyway, I mean, if you shut Talia Scott down, you stopped them. That's what it seemed like down the stretch. And I do think Talia Scott got tired, and you got at the very end of the year. And look, she hadn't played she played more games this year than the last 2 years combined. I mean, 3 games a year ago, and then obviously less than 22 games her true freshman season at Auburn. So 20 games to be exact, but you still get the point. 23 games within the first 2 years, and she played 33, and she even missed 2 games due to injury. So you guys get the point. And obviously, if Markayla Johnson you cannot really count on for next year potentially, even if she does come back to Baylor, you got to get somebody in place of her, both in terms of maybe a starter and off the bench. I know there's obviously Yu-Ching Dong, and I do think Yu-Ching hit the wall a little bit, because we got not just physically, but maybe like in college basketball wise, because you got to remember at Auburn she only played like 1 semester. This year she played a full year. And honestly, there's like Kayla Nelms and Kyle Abraham that could potentially come back, and they both had good times. They played good at really good sometimes, but other times not. And obviously, there's Kara Pimpleton. We have to wait and see about that. And I know there's Inez Gorianova. I don't think she's starter point guard good. You got to remember, like, she was coming off of a torn ACL out of high school. And then she had to redshirt her true freshman year, and she had to recover even some of this year. And she did play in some games, but I do like the upside. It's just you wouldn't want to put so much pressure on a player that's just literally playing for the first time in 2 years. And honestly, there's Ella Brown. I know she's had an injury history in her career. Even this past year, like she had like a stress fracture. Unfortunately, and then it kind of set her back to the point that she couldn't play until January. And there is no freshman coming in for Baylor women's basketball for next year. However, I will say there is like one player that had Baylor in her top 6 before committing to Penn State. And honestly, the Penn State head coach is gone. So And that player is Chick A. Des Dunes, like a 5'10" combo guard. That's ranked as a 4-star. Everything, unless there's a change, in terms of hey, I want to get out my commitment / letter of intent because of head coaching change. Everything is going to be transfer portal. You got to keep that in mind. And I'm sorry this went over 30 minutes now, but I want to go over in detail, not just in terms of Baylor wins basketball. I think in terms of expectations, I don't think Final Four expectations are realistic. Yes, we would love to get back there for the first time since 2019, but I don't think it's realistic at this time due to the nature of college athletics. And I kind of mentioned a few programs that they're going to be there anyway, and then obviously there's competition for that potential last spot. So you get the point in what the losses are, and I kind of briefly touched over the Big 12 in terms of the number of players gone for the top 6 schools in the Big 12. So anyways, if you like this content, hit the like, subscribe, and see you guys later on the right end. And subscribe, scores ultimate goals, 1,000 more. Some of my other scores live video. Comment really helps YouTube background. Some more people see us, sharing the videos help as well. Some more people could watch, and if you're watching and not subscribed, hit subscribe and notification bell as well. I just hope this doesn't sound like a rant. I just wanted to be very informative about this. I do think there needs to be something done in terms of NCAAs. It's just conference-wise, we're right there. It's just not that far away, and I know it's annoying to not beat TCU 5 straight times, but hopefully that does get changed into the for the following year, and we have to monitor what's going to happen in terms of transfer portal commits and maybe transfer portal losses. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see in the offseason here.